Loners Stay Together, an original mystery by Robert Napier, Chapter 5. Without me realizing it at the time, we drove past the gated estate of a local celebrity. He wasn't a weatherman or a disc jockey, but rather he was a doctor. He ran a clinic near campus, but preferred a bucolic lifestyle where the air was cleaner, the pace was slower, and the property taxes were much lower. His name was Dr. Nathan Rithvik. He was a swarthy man pushing 50, but with a full head of jet black hair and six-pack abs. He was famous for writing several self-help books, making a slew of daytime TV appearances, and overall being a nice guy. His ethnicity did not serve him well in this locale, but with his East Coast accent and the right clothing, he could pass for tan. That's one reason he almost never wore a white coat, preferring minty green scrubs when on his rounds. It was still early, maybe 0 or 800, but Dr. Rithvik had been up for hours. He was strict about his personal fitness, jogging, swimming, burpees, and yoga. He had a successful YouTube channel dedicated to his fitness regimes. Yoga doctor does 50 pull-ups and other such clickbait, but he really could do them. His mansion was the largest in the county, and he frequently entertained elites from all over the state. He reportedly had a large family abroad, and it was not uncommon for 2 or more relatives to be in residence at any given time. Like I said, he was a nice guy. So nice, in fact, that he had taken it upon himself to act as legal guardian for a young woman who found herself hospitalized, traumatized, and stigmatized. Before INS and CPS could get involved, an arrangement was made for Inez Ramirez to stay at the Rithvik estate while he generously provided for Ramsey's medical and educational expenses. In less than a month, Inez vanished. Nobody looked for her. Given what I know now, there are 3 likely scenarios. First, she never wanted the burden of a child anyway, saw an out and ran, changing states and names yet again. 2, she was murdered and buried somewhere. Or 3, the doctor simply paid her to go away. This was not a Cinderella story, however, and Ramsey Ramirez suffered terribly from PTSD, generalized anxiety, night terrors, and episodic depression. She woke every morning in cold sweats, nauseous, neck sore from grinding her teeth, and with a lingering dread that her dreams had somehow followed her into the waking world. More on that later. Her daily life was quite the contrast, and to the casual observer, she lived in paradise. The manor grounds were full of luscious subtropical plants, statues, fountains, gazebos, and even a koi pond. Ramsey just finished her 10th lap in the heated pool. The blue water glittered in the morning sun. She emerged in her modest one-piece suit, just as Rithvik's live-in housekeeper Esperanza was setting breakfast on the patio table. They spoke to each other exclusively in Spanish, although they were fluent in English. It was a subtle act of rebellion for them both. "Coffee, miss?" "No, thanks. Have you seen Dr. Rithvik?" Rithvik was a DO rather than an MD, and he tended towards a holistic approach to treatment. Usually, he checked on his ward first thing in the morning. Was she feeling all right? Has she been drinking enough water? How did she sleep? Did she do her morning exercises, that sort of thing? It was endearing. He never enforced any house rules, but always checked on her. It was against his wishes that she took a job in town at the local diner. She didn't need to work, he assured her. But yes, she did. She couldn't stay in paradise all the time thinking and remembering. She had to stay busy. She didn't know how to drive, but Ciro always gave her a ride into town. Esperanza tisked and nodded to the second-story window. In his study. As Ramsey dried her hair, she cocked her head. He got something on his mind? Bad mood today. Wooden blinds blocked most of the morning sunlight, but an Edison lamp glowed on the enormous desk. Everything in Rithvik's study was leather. He was making a statement that he was Indian, not Hindu. He even had a ponderous leather-bound book collection. I say collection, not library, because they were decorative, and not for lending. Rithvik sat behind the huge desk and smoked a fat blunt. He fixated on the local news playing in front of him. The screen repeated what I'd seen last night. The headline announces, Local professor brutally murdered. Below, they looped footage of a diner. By now, the state news had gotten hold of the story and had dug up several photographs of Roman, trying to paint a picture of a beloved community member cut down in the prime of life. If this could happen to him, why not you? Are shadowy gunmen coming for you? Oh God, none of us are safe. Panic. Don't think. Take statins. Nathan was engrossed and maybe a little stoned, so he didn't notice Ramsey knock and walk in. Hey! He looked up, startled. It's a nice day, she prompted. I just finished a swim. Ramirez had a white robe tied around her now. Some morning sun followed her into the room. The light from the domed entryway across from the stairs struck the shelves behind Dr. Rithvik. There were several figurines on display there, mostly religious artifacts, a couple of tribal masks, and Greek icons. Pretty normal rich people stuff. Ramsey didn't like them. They reminded her of the dream house, but most things did anyway. It wasn't the first time Nathan had noticed her noticing them. He smiled at her, hiding his, cigarette. I'll get rid of them, he said. Ramsey didn't register his words, but asked distantly, Bad stuff last night? Dr. Rithvik had been rotated into the ER last night. Fortunately, he hadn't been involved with Loner's body. He sighed wearily. The usual. Full house. Addicts, schizophrenics, depressives, manics. I tell them... Ramsey cut him off. You do so much. Yes. Do you remember Professor Loner? Ramsey blinked. Jess. Of course I do. Last night, somebody killed him. What? Oh my God. Rithvik studied her reaction, then confided. I just spoke with him. A thick silence settled on the enormous desk. Dr. Rithvik stood and paced in front of the window. Remember, we are having a party. Perhaps I should cancel? Ramsey shrugged. Sure. Whatever you think is best. She could see by his shoulders that he was not thrilled by her answer, so she hedged a bit. But maybe everybody needs a little distraction, you know? Nathan nodded solemnly. Very wise, as usual. Will you be there? Of course. I don't think you should go to work today. You say that every day. I know, but this time is different. I'll be safe. You want me to find out about Professor Loner? I mean the funeral? Dr. Rithvik took a long breath. No, we're not going anywhere near this. I don't think he would want us to. Ciro was in the hall overseeing the installation of new lights for the upcoming gala, and probably even more security cameras. Ciro is in his mid-30s. His hair had started to gray, so he combed it back close to his scalp. He dressed immaculately in a distinctively European three-piece suit. He projected caution and precision. He gave orders to the workmen in clipped phrases. More left, higher left. Ramsey approached him dressed for her shift at the diner. Ciro? She whispered. Yes? He was from somewhere in Eastern Europe, Greece, Macedonia? Ramsey guessed ex-military, and he still bore a slight accent. Accents were common in this mansion. Do you require transport? Ramsey handed him her tablet. You seen this? Ciro nodded without taking it. They walked down the stairs together, while the workmen somehow went on without his strict supervision. Will you do something for me? She whispered, looking over her shoulder in the most blatant and ridiculous way. Ciro raised an eyebrow. I want you to find out who this is for me. She made him take the tablet. Reluctantly, he looked down at it. There is a zoomed-in picture of a rascally blonde woman standing next to Roman in an outdated and god-awful family portrait. It's me. But they don't know that. I followed the deputies to the medical examiner's office. I went in, did my thing, got out again. It was him. No doubt about it. I didn't like seeing my big brother laid out on a slab. Something about how the head was tilted back, when someone is sleeping, they have a pillow under their head. Not when they're dead, you just get a block. I had seen bodies before. but goddammit, it's different when it's someone you know, someone you love, someone you fought with for the remote. The examiner told me what I already knew. He had been shot 3 times in the chest, dead before any assistance reached the scene. Probably died instantly. The wounds were close together. 3 shots had not been necessary. Any one of them could have been fatal. It might have been a coincidence, considering the chest was packed with organs. But 1 bullet had hit the heart, the 2 others in each lung. It was impossible to determine where he had been hit first. There was a zen quiet in my mind at this point. I had no cares or worries or fears. I wanted to solve the case. I wanted to catch the asshole. That was it. I forgot about Brian and about the bills and the FBI and losing the detective agency. Deputy Dillon asked if my folks were coming for the funeral. God, that caught me off guard. Like it didn't occur to me they needed to be involved. Bury him? I thought. A man shouldn't be buried before his murderer has been caught. That's how it felt. Roman deserved the honor and respect of a proper, timely burial. But god damn it, my mind was on one fucking thing. Who I was gonna bury. With him. No sleep and confusing feelings made my mind a molasses that thoughts stuck to like flies. It took me longer to answer than Dillon expected. Longer than was polite. I said, yeah, I'll call them, definitely. Here I was, whether I realized it or not, planning to kill someone for what they'd done, and yet I had no fucking clue how to plan a funeral. Dillon nodded and shook my hand. He was kind of dopey but clean-cut, and his grip felt genuine. Whatever his actual capabilities were, he at least conveyed confidence. I walked away briskly, determined not to look back. I had nearly reached my car out front when Deputy Burr stopped me on the sidewalk. She jogged towards me. I looked at her expectantly. She hesitated to say whatever it was she stopped me for. She looked at the pavement. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for your loss, and you don't have to worry about the investigation. We'll take care of it. She lifted her head towards me, her eyes narrowed by the sun. For the first time, I could look straight at her. She was stout, like a cop, but her uniform was crisp and trim, and her heavy belt pinched her at the waist. Her hair was reddish-brown and loosely bound atop her head, letting strands fall around her cheeks and rather full eyebrows. Her eyes, though half-closed, were pale blue. Pretty. I didn't say anything. She turned away. I didn't like her. Just something about her terseness. Her tough guy attitude bothered me. So I took the shot. How long have you been fucking my brother? She whipped back too quickly, hands on her belt. What? She was more alarmed, I think, by the word choice than by what it meant. I need to know for the investigation. Deputy Burr moved closer, her eyes darting for eavesdroppers. I could see in her expression she was calculating a response. She decided to go with tough guy mode. Off and on, she said coolly. He tell you about it? I could tell on my own. You're his type. What type is that? Bitchy. Burr laughed. I think she was starting to like me. It was a while ago. Doesn't have anything to do with his death. Doesn't it? I said. I was pretty sure it didn't, but I wanted to antagonize her. See what I could shake loose. I was his student, one of his students. I stayed in town. You stayed in touch. Off and on, she reiterated. Enough to know where he keeps the coffee filters. She laughed again. You were just guessing, weren't you? That why your PI business is going under? 'Cause you just make guesses? Off and on. We stood in silence for a few moments. I didn't want to back down, though the exchange was pointless now. She shook her head. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, all right? Whoever did this is going to get what they deserve. I can promise you that. She replaced her reflective sunglasses, so I was staring at myself when I said, Thank you, that's very reassuring.
Hello, listener. My name is Robert Napier. I just wanted to say thank you for your support. If you enjoy this content or have suggestions on how to improve on it, please leave a like or comment. It would mean a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. Thank you.